Mammals were not always what we expected. In the past, some grew as large as modern rhinos. Others carried tusks, horns, or moved in unfamiliar ways. A few even lived alongside early humans. At first, they may seem strange, but each one was adapted to its environment, shaped by conditions very different from today. Around 37 million years ago, during the Eocene, much of what is now North America was covered in dense, humid forests. The climate was warm, the vegetation abundant, and the landscape supported a wide range of early mammalian forms, many of them unlike anything alive today. Among these was Uintatherium, one of the more unusual large herbivores of its time. Measuring up to about 13 feet and weighing close to roughly 4,400 pounds. Uintatherium was comparable in size to a modern rhinoceros. Its body was heavy and barrel-shaped, supported by short, pillar-like legs. Its overall build suggests an animal adapted for steady movement through soft, forested terrain rather than speed or endurance. But it was the head that distinguished it most clearly. The skull was large and reinforced, bearing 3 pairs of bony protuberances arranged along the top, 6 in total. These were not true horns, but solid outgrowths of bone, likely covered in thick skin. Their exact function remains uncertain, though they may have played a role in intraspecies display or physical competition. More striking still were its elongated upper canines, reaching lengths of up to 8 inches. These tusk-like teeth curved downward from the mouth, resembling those of later mammals that would use similar structures for defense or dominance. In Uintatherium, they may have served multiple purposes: deterring predators, competing with rivals, or interacting with vegetation. Despite its formidable appearance, Uintatherium's brain was surprisingly small, estimated at only around 300 grams. For an animal of its size, this indicates a relatively low level of neurological complexity, with behavior likely governed by instinct rather than advanced cognition. Uintatherium represents a pattern repeatedly in early mammalian evolution. Physical size and structural adaptation developed rapidly, allowing these animals to occupy ecological roles left vacant after the decline of earlier dominant groups. But neurological complexity did not always keep pace. It was, in many ways, a successful design for its environment, large, resilient, and well adapted to a stable, resource-rich ecosystem. But environments do not remain stable indefinitely. Large size alone was never a guarantee of long-term survival. Several million years after the time of Uintatherium, on a continent far removed from North America, evolution followed a very different path. During the Miocene and into the Pliocene, South America existed in long isolation, separated from other landmasses for tens of millions of years. In this self-contained environment, mammals evolved along unique trajectories, producing predators that challenge familiar expectations. Among them was Thylacosmilus. At first glance, it appears similar to the saber-toothed cats known from later ecosystems, but this resemblance is misleading. Thylacosmilus was not a feline, and not even a placental mammal. It belonged to a group of carnivorous marsupials, more closely related in evolutionary terms to modern kangaroos than to any cat. Its most striking feature was a pair of elongated upper canines, reaching lengths of up to about 6 inches. Unlike the teeth of saber-toothed cats, these canines grew continuously throughout life. To accommodate them, the skull evolved a highly unusual structure: deep grooves extending backward above the eye sockets, allowing the teeth to slide safely into place when the jaws were closed. This adaptation came with trade-offs. The lower jaw was relatively slender and lacked the reinforcement seen in placental saber-toothed predators. Biomechanical studies suggest that Thylacosmilus had a comparatively weak bite force. Rather than crushing or holding struggling prey, it likely relied on a different strategy. A predator that approached quietly delivered a precise, targeted strike, most likely to soft tissue such as the throat, and then withdrew. The long canines were not built for repeated impact, but for a single, controlled incision. This makes Thylacosmilus a specialized hunter, one shaped not by strength, but by precision. Its success depended on timing, positioning, and anatomical efficiency. What makes it particularly significant is not just its design, but its origin. The saber-tooth form, elongated canines, wide gape, specialized killing technique, also evolved independently in entirely different groups, including true cats millions of years later. Different lineages, different histories, yet a similar solution. In evolution, similar challenges often lead to similar outcomes, but the paths taken to reach them can be entirely separate. By the middle of the Miocene, around 15 million years ago, another branch of mammalian evolution had begun to refine a very different solution to survival, one rooted not in predation, but in feeding efficiency. Platybelodon, a distant relative of modern elephants, moved through the wetlands and forest margins of Africa, Asia, and parts of Eurasia. At a glance, its body followed a familiar pattern. A large, heavy frame supported by pillar-like limbs, with an estimated length of up to 4 meters and a weight exceeding 3 metric tons. But its skull revealed something far less familiar. Its lower jaw extended forward into a broad, flattened structure, forming what is often described as a shovel. The lower incisors were elongated and fused into this blade-like surface, while the upper tusks curved downward above it. Together, they formed a functional tool, one that appears to have been adapted for interacting directly with vegetation. Wear patterns on fossilized teeth suggest that Platybelodon used this specialized jaw to cut through soft plants, strip bark, and possibly pull aquatic vegetation from marshy ground. Rather than browsing selectively like many large herbivores, it may have processed large amounts of plant material in a highly mechanical way. This was not a generalist feeder. It was a specialist, an animal shaped by a very specific ecological role. Specialization works well when conditions stay stable. If resources remain consistent, these traits give animals a clear advantage, helping them use their niche very efficiently. But specialization also has a downside. Sometimes it becomes so extreme that survival depends on just one strategy. By the late Eocene to early Oligocene, around 34 to 30 million years ago, the landscapes of northern Africa were shaped by a very different world. Along the margins of the ancient Tethys Sea, lush coastal plains and wetlands supported a diverse community of large herbivores. Among them was ARSINOITHERIUM, an animal that, at first glance, appears strikingly familiar. Roughly 3 to 4 meters in length and weighing an estimated 2 to 3 metric tons, ARSINOITHERIUM had a robust, rhinoceros-like body supported by strong, columnar limbs. But its most defining feature was its skull. Extending forward above the snout were 2 massive horn-like structures, paired with a second, smaller set positioned just behind them. These were not keratin horns like those of modern rhinos, but solid, bony outgrowths. Their size and structure suggest they were likely used for display or controlled physical interaction rather than high-impact combat. Despite its resemblance to a rhinoceros, ARSINOITHERIUM was not closely related to them. In fact, it belongs to a lineage more closely related to elephants, sea cows, and hyraxes, a group of mammals called afrotherians. This apparent contradiction, similar form, different ancestry, is a well-documented pattern in evolution. Similar environmental pressures can lead unrelated species to develop comparable body plans. Large size, heavy limbs, and forward-projecting horns can all serve similar ecological roles, even when they arise independently. ARSINOITHERIUM is a clear example of this. It may look like one group, but its true ancestry tells a completely different story. Form does not always reflect relationship, and resemblance is not the same as shared origin. South America did not follow the same evolutionary script as the rest of the world. For tens of millions of years, it remained cut off. No elephants, no horses, no large herbivores arriving from the north. What developed instead were animals that filled similar roles, but through entirely separate histories. PYROTHERIUM is one of the clearest examples of that divergence. It was a large, heavy-built herbivore, reaching nearly 3 meters in length and weighing over a ton. Its limbs were thick and weight-bearing, not designed for speed, but for supporting mass over soft ground. It likely moved slowly through humid lowlands, where vegetation was dense and water was never far away. The teeth tell a more specific story. Wide, flat, and aligned for pressure rather than cutting, they were suited to grinding tough plant material, roots, stems, and fibrous growth. This suggests a feeding strategy built around endurance, not selectivity. Its skull, long and slightly elevated at the front, has led to the recurring idea of a short trunk. It is a reasonable interpretation, but not a confirmed one. What complicates PYROTHERIUM further is its lineage. It does not fit cleanly into any modern group. It is not an early elephant, nor closely related to one. In isolated systems, evolution does not repeat exactly. It improvises. Water shaped both the habitat and behavior of ASTRAPOTHERIUM. Living from the late Oligocene into the Miocene, it occupied wetlands and river systems across South America, where dense vegetation and soft ground reduced the need for speed. Reaching about 2.5 to 3 meters in length, it moved slowly through these environments, relying on stability rather than mobility. Its skull reveals key adaptations. The nasal opening sits high and far back, indicating a short, flexible trunk, likely used to gather vegetation while partially submerged. From the lower jaw, curved tusks extended forward, measuring around 20 to 30 centimeters. These may have been used to pull aquatic plants or disturb soft sediment to expose roots. Its molars were low-crowned and simple, suited for softer vegetation rather than tough, fibrous plants. Together, these features point to a semi-aquatic feeder, shaped by a stable but highly specific environment where precision mattered more than versatility. Cold defined the landscape this time. During the Pleistocene, across the glacial wetlands of North America, CASTOROIDES, the giant beaver, occupied rivers, lakes, and slow-moving waterways shaped by ice and seasonal melt. It was significantly larger than any modern beaver, reaching lengths of up to 2.5 meters. Its most striking feature was its incisors, which could grow to nearly 15 centimeters. Broad and powerful, built for cutting rather than precision shaping. At a glance, it invites comparison to modern beavers, but the similarities may be limited. There is no clear evidence that CASTOROIDES constructed dams or lodges in the same way. Its teeth were structurally different, less suited for felling large trees, and more adapted for processing softer vegetation. Rather than actively reshaping waterways like an engineer, CASTOROIDES likely influenced its environment through feeding. altering plant distribution, opening space in dense wetlands, and shaping habitats more gradually. Even without complex building behavior, its presence would have mattered. Ecosystems aren't shaped by a single strategy, but by many interactions, some obvious, others subtle, yet all important over time. The pattern shifts again when we move further back in time, into the early Cretaceous, around 125 million years ago. In a world dominated by dinosaurs, most mammals remain small, rarely exceeding the size of a modern rat. But REPENOMAMUS did not follow that pattern. It grew to nearly 1 meter in length and could weigh over 10 kilograms, unusually large for its time. What sets it apart is not only its size, but direct fossil evidence of its behavior. In one specimen, the remains of a juvenile Psittacosaurus were found preserved within its stomach contents. This is not speculation, but physical proof of predation. Its jaws were robust, equipped with sharp, differentiated teeth capable of gripping and processing vertebrate prey. This was not an animal limited to insects or scavenging. For a brief moment in deep time, mammals and dinosaurs were not in a one-sided relationship. Mammals weren't just hiding in the shadows, they were sometimes active predators. After the extinction of the dinosaurs, ecosystems opened rapidly, and mammals began exploring new roles. BARYLAMBDA was part of this early expansion. Living during the Paleocene, it was a herbivore with a heavy body, strong limbs, and relatively small head. Its teeth were broad and suited for grinding plant material, indicating a diet of leaves and soft vegetation. What stands out is its posture. Skeletal structure suggests it could rear up on its hind legs, using its tail for support, allowing it to reach higher vegetation when needed. This was not specialization, but flexibility. Early in mammal evolution, body plans were still experimental, flexible, functional, and not yet fixed into the forms we recognize today. Not all evolutionary paths followed familiar patterns of movement. Leptictidium, from the Eocene of Europe, around 47 to 35 million years ago, is known from exceptionally preserved fossils in Messel, Germany. These fossils include stomach contents, indicating a diet of insects and small invertebrates. Its elongated snout and fine teeth suggest active foraging along the forest floor, probing soil and leaf litter. But what sets it apart is how it moved. Evidence points to a hopping locomotion, unusual among early placental mammals. Likely used for quick, irregular bursts to catch prey or avoid predators. In evolution, even movement is not fixed. It can diverge into multiple solutions shaped by environment and opportunity. Across tens of millions of years, these mammals occupied environments that no longer exist. Each species was adapted to its own conditions, with structures and behaviors that made sense within a specific ecological context. Today, those forms can seem unusual, but at the time, they were functional, stable, and part of working ecosystems. Their disappearance was not the result of failure, but of change. Shifts in climate, geography, and competition that reshaped the balance of life. If you find these forgotten forms as compelling as we do, subscribe to follow future explorations into the deep history of life on Earth.